Claps.
Oh my god.
Hi.
Thank you to our live studio audience. Anyways,
Three people.
Hi everyone. Welcome back to Film Fatales.
This is the podcast where
Oh,
we
right. Sorry.
discuss iconic performances, actors and actresses, mostly actresses.
Sometimes we don't say that part, so I never know if we're gonna do the whole thing today or not.
No, it's always going to be a work in progress. We don't have a tagline, so we can work on that for sure.
We have enough to work on, honestly.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It's fine. Yeah.
So we're on our final episode of Emma Stone, which is also like a transitional episode into our next month of the podcast. More than a month. It'll be about a month.
It'll be a month, yeah.
Where we're going to be looking at all of the nominees for Best Actress at the Oscars this year, which were announced a few days ago. And Emma Stone, for the film we're talking about today, is nominated. Of course, that's for Poor Things, which once again she did with that guy whose name I can't remember, Yorgos
Lanthimos.
That is such a sickening name, honestly. Like, it's such a sickening name.
Aubrey Plaza has like in the Spirit Awards ceremony where she hosted, she joked about Yorgos Lanthimos sounds like a Harry Potter spell, and it's like
For real.
It sounds like something you would like in like finger yourself or something.
It sounds like one word. Like it blends together so well. Yet I still can never remember it. So
amazing.
Yeah, so Poor Things.
Should we talk about the discourse first? I think
well, why don't you tell people just generally what it's about?
So Poor Things, it's a Frankenstein retelling of a young gal. Her name was Victoria, but she was turned into Bella Baxter by this unorthodox scientist played by Willem Dafoe. And the story talks about her coming of age journey into adulthood, re-entering adulthood, really, through different relationship with herself, relationship with men, and across the globe. But before we talk about it, should we talk like 1 minute about like Oscar noms? Because I think it warrants. Because as we're entering Oscar season, I think a lot of discourse happening online about like the snubs, like particularly the Barbie snub. If we're gonna look into it, I feel like it's a good preface to kind of start the conversation, maybe.
Well, I mean, sure. We could also do that next episode. Like, do you want to do that now? Since this is, I don't know, it's weird because this episode is both the final Emma Stone episode and also the start of the Oscars episode. So I guess, yeah, we can talk about it. Here's what I have to say. Get over it.
Get over it. I think it's just ridiculous. Come on, like the movie wasn't that great. Like when we did our review, I think we're in the moment of like this movie is culturally relevant, but I don't think of it as like cinematically important. It's not telling a story that is very inventive, or it feels a little bit derivative.
I don't think I agree with that.
What do you have to say?
I enjoy Barbie. I think it stands up as a movie. I think it's a fun watch, and I think that's why it's nominated for 8 Oscars. Like that's like it's one of the most nominated films of the year. Like that's like there's such a. And also, can I just say that Greta and Margot are both nominated? They're just not nominated in the categories that people want them to be nominated in. Like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not quite following. I have said since our review, like, people, like, I keep seeing gripes about Ken was nominated over Barbie. And since in our review, I made clear that Ryan Gosling acts circles around Margot Robbie in that film. He totally eclipses her in that movie, and she's good and she's fine, and I don't actually think the role of Barbie offers many places to go as an actor. Um, she didn't deserve a
especially
nomination.
especially the storyline within Barbie itself, right? Like I think the role that Ryan Gosling was playing, there's a little bit more room for
For
dramatic
sure.
development or
And, like,
yeah,
physical comedy and just,
totally.
campiness, like, it and you look at the category, and we'll go through it at some point, of course, who
Yes,
would she replace? There's absolutely no one in that category where I think Margot Robbie did a better job.
totally. I agree with you.
So
Yeah.
and
I
then
feel like
I look
snubs are
at
always.
go ahead.
I feel like snubs are always generating more conversation than the actual nominations themselves, right? Like it's like Drag Race, the first queen going home. Like
Right,
they generate more conversation than the second queen going home. Like because
right.
it's kind of iconic in a way, to start the season. So
And
um,
I look
like
at who's nominated in Best Director, and I mean, I can't speak for Zone of Interest because I haven't seen it, but who would Greta Gerwig replace? I have no idea. And why a lot of people are like, "This was the biggest movie of the year. This was the biggest box office hit of the year." That has no bearing on the Oscars. That has no
totally.
bearing how commercially successful your film is for the Oscars. And why aren't people upset that, Celine's song wasn't nominated? And are people
Say it louder.
why are people expecting applying pressure to, I mean, Ryan Gosling, but what really is annoying me is America Ferrera. Why, when she's having this huge moment in her career as a non-white person, and she now has to take time to go on social media and say Margot and Greta should have been nominated rather than like really sitting in this like huge moment for her. Like, why are we expecting that of her?
Because we were always thinking about the award season as this reflection of merit, and like if the film was really commercially successful, then the award season should reflect that. Like it should reflect every facet of that look. So being nominated for as many categories as possible. So like snubs like this have the effect of and like people just feeling really like rallying behind them. Um
Right.
and it just turns into a spectacle itself. So like I think this is all a whole part of the campaign of this movie Barbie. We'll just spend a really quick minute here. Like from the get go, it's so funded. It's backed by like a big company, of course, and entering this culture, like popular culture, with such force. Um, like no one can escape from it. I think the 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 thing that I find troubling is like why do we have to why do we have to entertain these expectations? Like, oh, of course it should be nominated this way, but then also taking a lot of room for other like actresses and also other directors that also equally contributing as much as possible, right? Um,
Yeah. I
like
mean,
Lily
and
Gladstone. Like we'll talk about it in our future episodes too.
I mean, we can talk about like, I mean, like, it is a conversation about how many female directors get nominated at the Oscars. That's like a valid conversation, but um, it's just the whiteness of it all for me. It's just like no one
Oh,
and
with Hillary Clinton.
Celine Song is the one that sticks out to me because 'cause I'm like, Past Lives was a big movie. People loved that movie, rallied behind it. It was largely ignored at the Oscars, whatever. No one cares about Celine Song not getting a nomination.
Right. I think it's always the conversation is always about like the minority, like mainstream success, and like how like the award season is just it's just a reflection of that too.
And, like,
Like
Lily Gladstone is nominated this year and will likely win, and so it's like, I don't know, like, why does the conversation have to turn so like, it's like nothing can be celebrated because these 2 white chicks weren't nominated, and that's just so annoying, and it's getting
I
really
think
dramatic.
I think you just summed up white feminism perfectly. um, maybe a segue that we can turn into is I think there's a lot of comparison between Barbie and Poor Things. Do you think there's like a similarity between the two stories? Before we jump into like the plot itself.
Yeah, I mean, the general theme of, like, learning and discovering what it means to be human is is in both of them, which is so
Yeah,
fucking but, like, very different. Anyways, um, what did you think of this film?
I love it. I think I'm still in shock of seeing this,
Yeah.
to be honest. Um, there's some parts that don't really sit with me personally, but we'll talk about it. What exactly parts of it? But I think overall it really made me uncomfortable. I think it provoked me a lot of ways, visually, thematically, sexually. It puts a lot of things, forces you to like watch it and experience it, and um, there isn't any room for like for rumination. Really, there isn't a lot of thinking left to do after watching this film, um, which I think similarly with Barbie as well. Maybe there's
What
like
do
a
you mean there's
parallel
not a lot of
between,
thinking?
like you see like a full cycle of like the full journey of Bella Baxter becoming her own person, um,
Right.
and there's almost no fault in her. Like you see her as this insular being in this world, and I wish there's a little bit more like humanity in her, but I think that's exactly the point of the movie. Like she's kind of not human in a way, post-human maybe. Not to put on jargons
But
here,
she learns
but
humanity. She learns humanity. That's the
right,
whole point.
yeah. What are your thoughts?
I really love this movie.
Yeah,
I really love that it's set in like this like I don't even know, like futuristic but also Victorian world. Like there's like and you get a lot of that when they go. So essentially Bella is like ends up leaving Willem Dafoe, who she is her like creator father. She calls him God, right? And
yes,
um travels around Europe basically is I guess the best way to
yeah.
say it.
Or she can say whoring around
Right.
Europe,
She
which I
yeah.
think you lived through that.
And so especially when they're in Portugal, I noticed it. It was very like there were like cable cars in the sky and like it was like almost this like steampunk but not as corny, like
Yeah,
futuristic but also Victorian, I think is the best
retro
way to describe it.
future,
And it's like this yeah,
yeah,
it's like this world where it just makes you feel like you can't place like as a viewer, I couldn't really place like what time period this was taking place in, and I don't know if that was intentional, but it created this effect of like as a viewer, I'm also kind of like overwhelmed and visually disoriented with this world in the same way that that Bella is as she's going through it, right?
yeah,
That's
totally.
nice. Wow, look at me. Look at that analysis.
I really like the styling of it. The film is also nominated for production and production design and costume design, which I think it's
The
so
costumes were so sick.
amazing. Um, maybe we can talk about like some key like moments in the film, and then we can kind of circle back into Emma Stone's performance. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's very, it's like a pretty big, like
what was your viewing experience like? Like, what did you watch it in the theater? Like,
yeah,
did
I
you? It's
watched it in
like
the
a
theater.
more diverse crowd. Like, did you catch any people's like reaction?
Oh, yes, oh my god, thank you for reminding me, because okay, so there's a lot of sex in this movie, and
Yes.
I don't know if the like, there's actually, like, an obscene amount of sex in this movie, and I don't know if the point of that is, like, to to comment on something. Like, I don't know if that's to comment on how how, like, everything's about sex in the world. Is that what that point is? Or is it to comment on, or is it just to comment on, like, the like, objection of women, and then she, like, claims sex for herself? Like, I don't fully.
Well, yeah,
Anyways, not the point. There's a lot of sex in this movie. And,
yes.
um, a around, maybe, like, when she first gets with,
Willem
um,
Dafoe. No,
Mark
Mark
Ruffalo,
Ruffalo. Yes.
and they're having sex all the time, and it was just a lot of sex and nudity, and this old couple behind me just got up and left, like, they walked out.
They
They
walked
walked
out. Like
out. They walked
they
out, they
never
never
came
came
back.
back. No, they were not happy, like, they were true, and they looked disturbed.
Shooketh.
Yeah.
What do you think they're thinking about? Like, were they not? I think is it because like how frequent sex is being featured, or is it just
I don't know, or is it the nudity, or
how?
did they just not like it? I mean, there's also a lot of, like, gore in this movie, like,
Yes.
not in, like, a shock kind of way, but just in a, like, anatomical
Amico.
way. Um, so I don't know, but yeah, they walked out, didn't like it.
They're missing out. They're missing out the true like exploration
I
of
don't know, because there
humanity
just
and the
was more and more and
expensiveness
more
of
and
it.
more sex after they left, so I don't know if they would've had a good time.
Like, do you think there's too much sex? Like, I think back to what you were saying earlier, I think like for Bella, the character himself, like the body is a main thing for her, like rediscovering her body through like the early self-pleasuring, like masturbation and like finding out pleasure through her own body. And she was able to only find her way of being herself through that route. Um, and then like later on in the film, like she's able to like have a more fully realized version of herself, like her capacity as a woman and like her role, like her daughter, her being a daughter and a wife. She's later able to find those parts of her, but I think the first half of the film, like so much of the emphasis is on sex. I don't find it really jarring. I feel like it's supposed to kind of shock us, and it is only through like repeatedly like showing sex scenes that it kind of like forces us to really think in her perspective and like be in the journey with her in some kind of way, you know?
I don't fully think I've worked through what the amount of sex was supposed to tell me. Do I think it was maybe to the point where it became a little obscene? Like, yeah, I do. I think that, um yeah, I do. I think there was too much sex, and, like, I'm not a prude by any means, and I'm not even, like, bothered by seeing the sex. It just became quite repetitive. Particularly, it's hard to talk about this film if people listening haven't seen this film, because so much happens. Like, it's truly a very, like, epic, almost like Wizard of Oz type fucking journey. Like, it's like
Not you comparing this with it all. I mean, yeah, it's actually kind of
but it
the
kind of
narratively. It
is.
actually, yeah, exactly. She's going to a lot of
Um,
places. She's kind of jumping furiously with a lot of different
so
people.
so she goes all over Europe. She goes to Portugal. Where else do they go? Well, they're in London. They go to Portugal. They go
Alexandria,
to Alexandria. They go to Paris. Is
yes,
that it? Anyways,
I think that's it.
by the
Yeah,
time they get to Paris, they're like out of money, and so Bella um becomes part of a brothel, like becomes a sex worker essentially.
right.
Which
Yeah,
that was the point where I was like, the amount of sex I'm seeing, like, I would get what you're trying to say if you cut out maybe 3 of these scenes. Like, but I do really like everything about like, it's all about her innocence and how that innocence slowly is tainted by the realities of the real world. Like, when she discovers that there are people who are unhoused or living in poverty while she lives in, like, these with the has always lived a more, I guess, lavish lifestyle, right?
affluent life. Yeah,
Um, so when she does the brothel, it's interesting because it's like I feel like it's challenging the viewer to I feel like all of this film is challenging the viewer to, like, discover along with her and to kind of, like, leave our own biases behind, um, because the way she approaches everything, like, the way she approaches everything is so just, like, human nature, like, "This makes me happy, this makes me feel good, so I'm gonna do it," right? And then it gets a little bit more complicated when she discovers empathy and doesn't wanna hurt other people, but it always like, her becoming a sex worker, it's not this, like, moral dilemma for her, it's like this, "Sex makes me happy, money makes me happy." Why not do both at once? Like, it's very just, like, logic logic and emotion driven.
Totally.
So
I think she was like telling Mark Ruffalo at one point like I'm b- I'm the means of production. Like I think that was like the point where I hear a lot
for
of
real.
gasp in the theater. I'm like, okay, so she knows what the fuck is up now. I think I think the choice of her and also the movie itself, like using a lot of sex, it's kind of like not the only way of telling the story, but also but just because like, she is not herself, she's her child really. Like I think to ground the story in that approach and like if we can look at the movie in terms of the body and not sex, I think that's more of a broader and like more generative way of looking at a movie. Like there's a lot of like reviews talking about like, oh, like this movie it's kind of misogynist or um
Really?
it's yeah, like people think that it was a little too like again like white feminists and like talking about like especially the like the film like kind of imposing Bella against a lot of like men who are like emotionally incapable and also really damaging and toxic like um and her kind of this her being is almost like an antidote to all of those troubles that those men have. um at first glance it like that those kind of critiques sounds a little bit reductive, but I think she really like transcends what it means to be a person and like tells us a lot about like how do we be ourselves in like the modern age with a certain kind of childish naivete or curiosity or passion for discovery. um
Right.
yeah, I don't know how to feel about this film yet just now, just because the film obviously touches upon a lot of stuff, but it it almost feels like there's nothing left to read into. Do you like
I
do you
feel
do you
like
feel this?
this film I feel like positioning this film next to Barbie like you did is effective in showing me how, um, how flat Barbie's exploration of feminism really was. Like, I think that this film I don't find it misogynistic, I think that's a crazy critique. Um, this film, I think, is a much more real and messy and, genuine exploration of what it means to be, like, a human and more specifically, a woman in the world. You see her go through every stage of that, of, like, um she's objectified constantly from her creation she's objectified like Willem Dafoe like she's someone always is like claiming her as theirs, right? And so
Yeah, the
then
paternal figure.
and there's always like she like never I don't know if it's a lack of like or just like her emotional capacity at those moments, but she never lets that stop her really from doing anything. And she um, I don't think fully gets until we get the ending with, um, the husband. Like,
The
I don't know, it's
general,
so
yeah.
hard to explain. She was a person who was pregnant and killed herself, and Willem Dafoe took that baby's brain and put it in her head, right? So
Yes.
the person who killed themselves had a husband, so he shows up. And when she's back with him, that's when I think it's like that's like once again someone trying to own her, and this time it's more extreme, I think, than anyone so far. And she has learned um how to resist that and how to fight against that. And like then at the end of the film, she's this fucking bad bitch becoming a doctor, like doing the thing. So I don't know. I think that this movie is just really much more dynamic in its exploration of um womanhood than Barbie. Is that
Woman
a hot take?
rights. No, that's not a hot take. I think that's valid, and I think I agree with you. But you're also tuning into two podcasts with two pals and gals, two men talking about it. So you might not be tuning into the right resource for that.
That's fair.
um, yeah, I agree with you with your what you thought about like Barbie. But I mean like the two movies obviously touch on very similar themes, but I think the way that it it needs so Poor Thing is based on like a novel adaptation. So there's a little bit of like that sticking with the original, but then even like a Barbie where we imagine like to be this really inventive story, like I think the burden of Barbie was because of the name and like the brand attached, there's a lot more pandering for mainstream audience. Um I think us having watched like Yorgos Lanthimos, like we kind of know what his style and kind of treatment and what like how far is he gonna go for it, right? Like I think this Poor Things is definitely one of like the more like out there outlandish films that I've seen
Yeah.
in a while. Um,
So original. It's like really, really original. And
totally.
I'm interested. I'm really excited by the fact that I think there's a lot of films that are going to come out that are I think two things are going to happen. I think a lot of films are going to come out that are super original, and I think that we're reaching a point where film is like expanding its boundaries. And then at the same time, I think with the success of a film like this or Everything Everywhere, there's going to be a lot of films that are like trying to be weird to be original, like without any substance. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that, but I'm excited for the former of that,
Yeah.
because it's like these movies that are taking really intricate human experiences and really not like exaggerating them, but kind of like really just like building this whole epic storyline around very simple human experiences, and that's cool.
Yeah. I think I'm excited to like I'm worried about like as we're stepping into Oscar season, there's a lot more nominations for biopics. I think that warrants another like conversation about like not per se the future of film maybe, but then what is gonna get done in like
We'll be talking
theaters.
about a biopic this month.
I'm not excited for this.
Okay.
I
Um
am excited.
okay, so enough about the film, whatever. Let's discuss Emma Stone as it's our final time with her. So what did
This
we
is her
think?
last film that she's gonna make.
What did we think?
I think she was really good. I think she's pretty good. As I was saying, I think this is still sitting in my brain a little bit. I think she did what she had to do. She did what needed to be done, kind of. Um, I don't see any room for like pushing it further. Um, she writes that line, like, I think this film particularly, she really showcased more the dramatic side of her. Um, and this film, I think, kind of sits between a little bit of a comedy, but a lot more dramatic building, especially if we look into like the early hour of the film, where she's kind of post-verbal and then slowly building towards like the fully realized version of herself. So um, it's not an easy thing to act, I imagined.
Right.
Yeah.
She was incredible. She was incredible in this movie. This is the best she's ever acted in any film she's ever done. This is going to be the peak of her career. It's
Why
all
you say
downhill from
that?
here, bitch. It's all downhill from here. Sorry. Um,
The slander.
she's perfect in this movie.
I
We
think
have not
there's
used
much
any
more.
of your sounds. We haven't used any of your
We haven't.
soundboard.
Do you know who this is?
That's Heidi in closet.
That's Heidi Clausen. How dare you calling her her career best? This movie, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if this is actually her career. Not,
Listen, maybe she'll do better things. I'm saying I think I am standing, 10 toes down on the fact that this is the best film, the best acting she's done in her career so far. She like
yes.
every movement and like the difficulty of playing a character like this, I can't even like I mean, I'm not an actor. I can't even fathom it. Like to have to strip yourself of every sort of again bias or understanding of how to navigate the world that you have just as a human and you can't it's not even a the job isn't even uh to now think of how this character would have their own ways of navigating the world. You are becoming a character who has no ways of navigating the world, who has absolutely no understanding of how anything in the world works, like at the beginning of the film. And to be able to do like I can't even comprehend how you play this character. Like it's really wild. Everything from the physicality of it, like the walking and the inability to speak, to the like discovering what masturbation is. It's just like everything is so um just like masterfully done. I think this was incredible.
Yeah. I wonder what kind of research she has to go through for this. Like to add on to your point, like I think having a child's brain, but having a woman's body, I think that adds another physical difficulty about playing this part because you have to like you're almost like a 4-year-old moving a couch. It's it's you have to play a little like inconvenient, but you can really like make it into like a spectacle. Like she kind of does a lot of that. I think we kind of need to give her more credit for that because um I don't think it's easily done for sure. Again, we're not actors, so we wouldn't know. Um, and also a lot of like the lines. I think this film particularly is very different from the three films that we've watched, where like verbally there's a lot more challenging dialogues and a lot more room for her to play around. Um,
Right.
like we look at the favorite, like she's this proper lady, like also British, has a British accent, right? Um, it's more like the films that she was acting that we have discussed before. Like she's more coherent. She's more um, like the smart, snotty, and like sassy character. But this film kind of really is in a different kind of area and like wheelhouse. Um, I'm not surprised
For
that she's
real.
able to. I'm not surprised that she's able to kind of knock this out of the park. Um, maybe it's also the fact that her having worked with Yorgos before. I think this is kind of like this burgeoning like partnership between the two, and I think that
Yeah, a
maybe
sense of
contributed a lot of the
trust.
success for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think playing this role would require a large sense of trust. And I watched some of the roundtable, like actresses roundtable that Variety does every year, and she's on it. And she said that all she did to prepare for months before was her and Yorgos one on one would meet and like workshop do like she didn't really go into detail, but she said do like really stupid activities, like really stupid, sort of like literally like months of theater games, basically, and to prepare for the physicality of the role. I think that there's also very clearly a lot of trust between them, which she also said in the roundtable that to play this role, like she tried so many things during filming, and so it had to be done with someone, a director who she trusted to to choose like the best take for the point of the film, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because she said there's nothing worse than like really going for it and doing some trying something and it not going well and then not knowing if the director's gonna like use that cut, right? So I think there's just a large sense of trust between them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Let me just
I
take a look at.
I wouldn't
Sorry,
be
go for it.
mad. I would not be mad if, and I've seen most of the films we're discussing this month. I would not be mad if she took home the Oscar for this.
But this would be her second Oscar win for
It
Best
would,
Actress.
it should probably be her first, but
Oh, the slander.
but this was just so incredible. I'm sorry. I
Yeah, this is
yeah,
this
everything
is
about it.
this feels definitely like. Do you think this movie will be like a classic as we kind of move forward in like if in the future decades, if this is gonna be like a most rewatched, or is it gonna make it to a lot of different people's top fours?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I don't know about the film overall. I think that um that her performance will be remembered.
That's a big statement. I kind of disagree with you.
No, I
I
think her
think we've
performance will be
we
remembered.
I think we've yet to see a lot of like change. I think like even with this character, I think it's still pretty much in the same sphere that we have seen Emma Stone in, but because of how bizarre the film is, I think it really pushes her and forces her to take new directions. I think this movie kind of marks a new chapter for her career as a dramatic actress. So I
The
do
fact that you
foresee
call this
her.
a this is a comedy through and through. This is a funny movie.
I disagree. I think this is more dramatic and like coming of age. A lot of like actually the
It
film is
is a
kind of
coming
sad
of
for
age,
me.
but it's definitely a coming of age comedy. It's funny. Almost
Not
everything
her,
Bella
not
says is funny.
not her being funny. I think it's the men's reaction or like how the men are being perceived by her. I think that's more funny sometimes. Um,
Right.
I kind of look at into her character with some kind of jealousy because like I kind of left the theater feeling like little inspired but devastated because like how can I look at the world in such a way?
Mhm.
How can we like be her? Like I don't know what her means anymore. Like is it like naivete, or is it
No, it
just
starts
like
that way.
curiosity?
It
Or
starts as I think it starts as curiosity, and then she becomes naive, and then she becomes disillusioned, and, like, it all culminates. Like, it truly is trying to fit, like, a lifetime of experiences into her one journey around Europe, right?
right,
And when
but she never fades away from like her
she never
openness
loses herself,
for
literally her openness. She never loses, like, the openness to new people, to new experiences, despite learning that the world is such a fucked up place. I
like
love her,
Hamilton.
and I want to be her friend. I want to join her little commune that she makes at the end of the film. So,
Any I we do have more thoughts about this film. I think we've
no, it's
touched a
fine.
lot about the film, but then I think I'm curious to see what other people think as well. I think as the Oscar, as we're stepping into like the Oscar season, I think there'll be a lot more discussion about how the film has achieved, and um, I think right now, like from what I've heard so far, I think this film kind of sits not at the center stage of it, but like a little bit left of it. I think people have a certain kind of like association with her performance, and also it doesn't really hit right in
You
the
know she's
best
the favorite
actress.
to win the award, right?
I don't really.
Yeah.
I think
Critics
Lily Gladstone was
if you're talking critics perspectives, who the predictions are, it's mostly her, and then very, very, very,
really
very closely behind is Lily Gladstone.
interesting. Do you think that's true? Do you
Yes.
agree?
Oh, actually, sorry. If of the ones I've seen that we'll talk about this month, um, I actually don't think Emma Stone or Lily Gladstone were my favorite.
Cliffhanger. So we'll talk about what your
We'll
top pick is
we'll
when we
talk about
talk
it.
about the
We'll talk about it another time.
we'll talk
I
about
think that
that
this
time.
movie that just as is like a really perfect film to end Emma Stone on, just not just because obviously it's her most recent project, but I said last week that when La La Land came, like I was an Emma Stone stan after Easy A, like really nostalgic film for me, right? And then I started to fade on her around La La Land. I started to get bored, and then The Favorite, I was back, and like now, like I'm back. Like after this movie, I'm
We're so
back on the
back.
fucking Emma Stone train. Um, I think she's sickening, and I think that all the movies we've watched are actually so complementary to one another, and to culminate in this final one, which feels like a mixture of all of her strengths, but then pushing beyond anything she's ever done. I just think it's such a perfect ending. And I love her,
Yeah.
and if she hears this, she should give me a call.
uh I'm excited to see like if there's like a third collaboration with her and Yorgos Lanthimos. I'm curious to see what they're gonna do in the third one as
I'm sure
well.
there will be. And also, lest we forget that Emma Stone has no acting training. Like, she's a self-taught actor.
Good for her.
That's sickening.
Good for her.
She also was one of the 3 main producers on this film. I don't know if she's produced anything before.
There's there's a few there's a few performances that we didn't really capture in this month. I'm just gonna name some of them. Uh, The Help,
Yes,
The
okay, but
Amazing Spider-Man.
the reason we didn't focus on The Help is because if we ever do an absolutely sickening month on Octavia Spencer, I'm gonna wanna talk about
We're
The
gonna
Help
do The
then, you know what
Help.
I mean?
You just ate my shit, Minnie.
That should be a soundbite. That should be on your soundboard.
You just ate my shit. Um, Also, The Amazing Spider-Man, which I don't think that never was ever in our minds to do that,
No,
right?
it was not.
Yeah, no. It was also we also passed Birdman because she I don't think she has a lot of screen time and a big role in that movie. Um, and then the next one was like like the obvious City of Stars. No, La La Land. Sorry. We also skipped Zombieland. I think again like a lot of
Oh my
comedy.
god, I loved Zombieland when I was a kid too. That would have been a great nostalgic one for me too.
Yeah. Um, so I think like like in reviewing her career, like she definitely has a lot more like comedy in
Right.
her career. Um, but like I was saying, like I think Poor Things is kind of the first. I can sense like a certain like dramatic shift, like a shift in like in her career in terms of the tone that she can develop in her future work. I mean, she's
I
almost
don't think you give
35.
Emma Stone enough credit, and I'm gonna say that for the record. I don't think you are giving Emma Stone her flowers enough for
I
how
think so. I can
dynamic
agree
of an
with you.
actor she
Yeah.
already is, and she has nothing to prove to you or anyone else, and she straddles comedy and drama very well.
Why is there no like comedy category for the like Oscars? Like
It's all just nominated in the same.
I think it's so it kind of it warrants its own category, but I think us not
That's what the
knowing
Golden
too much
Globes are
about
for.
like history. There we go.
Also, this was marketed as a comedy at the Golden Globes, and she's nominated. So, also The
Good for
Holdovers
her.
is a comedy, and that's nominated.
That's not a comedy.
It's what it's marketed as. But, like, it's so binary to say comedy or drama. Like, it's so, like, limiting to put them in those boxes. Like, I don't know what, like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't find it helpful or generative to say this is a comedy, this is a drama, really.
That's
Which is
fair.
probably why they don't have those separate categories.
Right.
Also, just for the record, this is her first producing credit as a member of the Producers Guild of America.
Work.
So, work,
Get
bitch.
the bag, babe.
She also said
Do
in
we have
that
more
roundtable that she has no interest in directing anything ever.
Good.
Like, no interest in getting into directing.
That's probably a good thing.
Which interested me. Because I feel
George
like
Clooney can
I feel like it's
suck my
almost
ass.
I feel like it's almost expected when you reach a certain success as an actor to want to then direct.
Yeah. A lot of actors directing are often flops, so
Right.
yeah. George Clooney, for example. Sorry.
Well,
Um
that's our Emma Stone month, everyone.
well thanks for tuning in.
I love my
Do you have a good
girl.
time, honey?
I had a fabulous time. I love Emma Stone. I'm glad we did this. I am just back in love with her after this exploration of these films. I forgot how incredible I think she is. So, I
Silent.
what?
No, I agree, but I think there's too many. We've reviewed a lot of like white ladies, right? No, we have only done a few months.
Girl, we did Scream Queens, which was yes,
Mm,
entirely white. but we also did like if you're looking at months we dedicated to just actors, isn't this our second white lady?
We've done Angela Bassett. We've done Michelle
Third,
Yeoh.
no, second white lady. Margot
Oh,
and Emma.
oh, maybe. I think it's a disservice if we do that we have done Margot and Emma Stone so closely. I think it kind of just
It just
not
worked
me
out.
slandering, not me slandering the two of them being lookalike, but yeah, but
It just worked out that way.
yeah,
And it like led into, for one, I really wanted to talk about Poor Things, right? Like I want to like pull back the curtain. I want this podcast to talk about films that are also like I want a balance between films that are uh historically impactful and films that are like being talked about right now. And Poor Things when we is being talked about. And it just like leads right into the Oscars thing we wanted to do, blah blah blah. So apologies
amazing.
to anyone if you're getting bored with the white ladies. We'll mix it up after awards season.
We'll mix it up after, not during the award season, because it's a pretty white. No, it's not a white nomination.
Yes,
But
there's only one non-white lady in the category,
hey,
so
that's Oscars for you, honey.
right. So do you have anything to say about Emma Stone, or should I'll list off our plan for the month, like
Yeah,
what
let's
we're
do
talking
it.
about.
Let's let our listeners know what we're reviewing next.
So next week we're gonna talk about what are we talking about? We're gonna talk about
Drum roll.
oh my god, what other sounds do you have? Oh my god, Jeff, that's really fucking loud. What other sounds do you have?
I have clapping.
I know. Is there any way to turn the audio down on the soundboard?
Yes, I
It's
can.
blowing out my
Um,
eardrum.
do you want to tell our listeners what we're
Okay, next
reviewing
week we're
next?
talking about Zandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall. And then, and you have to say it the proper German way, Jeff.
Hule.
Yeah, good enough.
Okay.
And then we're talking about, we haven't decided yet, but in the category, we're talking about Annette Bening. What was that movie called again? Naiad?
Not yet. Yeah.
Lily Gladstone and Killers of the Flower Moon. And then the one Jeff's most excited for is Carey Mulligan in Maestro.
Jesus Christ.
because that rounds out the nominees for Best Actress this year. And then it will. When are the Oscars? March 10th. So it'll
10th.
really round out, it'll round out around the right time. Sickening.
Amazing.
It's almost like we
So
planned it
let's-
this way.
Yeah, it's almost perfect. So listeners, if you're interested to join us our weekly watch, stick around and find out, and follow our reviewing journey, and let us know if you agree on some of our reviews and whatever hot takes that we have.
What did you
can
give
also
Poor
follow
Things on
us.
Letterboxd? What did you give Poor Things on
I-
Letterboxd?
I gave it a 4.5, I believe, or a 4, I
too.
believe.
I give it a 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So make sure you
so
follow
like
us
Jeff said,
on Film Fatales Pod
That's
on
it.
Instagram. That's Film Fatales Pod on Instagram.
and leave us a 5-star review, please.
Exactly.
And thank
And
you.
on our socials, you'll see a lot of memes, a lot of reels, stuff like this. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Whore.
Clap, clap, clap out.
Clap. Goodbye.